And this one we can't multiply things through. There's no second way of doing it, right? There's only one way. So looking at this, I'm like, oh no, it's not a quadratic. But guess what? We're learning about quadratic-like equations. So guess what? I'm going to put a costume on this. And I'm going to make this look like what I want it to look like. So a quadratic, remember, a quadratic always has something where it looks like u squared, plus something u, some number u plus some number is equal to 0, right? There's always a u squared and a u whenever you put something in quadratic form. So quadratic form always has a u squared and a u and a number equals 0. So here, since there's no numbers here, I'm going to say, okay, u squared minus, there's no number here, so I put u minus 6 is equal to 0. And you're like, what? How did you do that? That's because I bought a costume and I put it on. But let's check out what is that costume. We have to identify what the costume is because later we got to take off the costume and solve for the real thing, right? So the costume that I put on is what do you think I'm letting u equal to in this problem? Right. I'm letting u equal to x to the 1/3. I'm letting u equal to this thing to replace this, right? This ugly thing. But I need to make sure that this works because if I square this, I better get this thing. If I square this and I get something that is not that, the costume doesn't fit. The costume has to fit this equation. So let's see if I square this. I'm hoping if I square this, I'll get this one. Then the costume will work. If I square this, u is equal to x to the 1/3. If I square this one, if I square this and I square this, right? If I square u squared, x to the 1/3 to the power of 2, what do I get? X to the 2/3. Does it fit? Yeah. It sure does. So that x to the 2/3 is indeed u squared. So whatever costume you put on, you need to try it on with the whole polynomial. Yes?
What happens if it doesn't work?
If it doesn't work, then you got to try something else or there's another method. So this method only works if you have a costume that fits this thing, and if you square it, you'll get this thing. Good question, Nam. Like, what if it doesn't work? Then it doesn't work. Then you got to try something different. Yes, George.
Is there no solution steps for that specific one here?
Is there no solutions?
Yeah.
For these problems, no. So all these questions you're going to get on your homework, they're always going to be quadratic-like. You're always going to be able to put a costume on. All right. So I have the costume on. Here's my quadratic. Can I solve this?
Yeah.
You sure can. So quadratic, we are happy. Go ahead and solve it. Solve for you. Okay. You guys are getting fast at this. I was going to say beat the professor, but you guys already finished. So if you factor it, what do we get?
3 and 2.
3,
U minus 3.
U minus 3,
U plus 2.
U plus 2, right? If you multiply them, you get negative 6. If you add them, you get negative 1. So therefore, using the zero product property, what do we get for U?
U equals 3.
U equals to 3, and U is equal to?
Negative 2.
Negative 2, right? So hopefully things are going a little bit faster for you guys as you guys are doing this. You don't have to write down every little step. U minus 3 equals 0. U equals 3. You don't have to go through every single step. Okay? Any questions on this? All good? All right, so now I have 3 and 2. Now, so again, this whole thing is simply just my costume, right? Just the costume, and this is what I get. Now I'm going to use back substitution to solve for my variable. Now I'm going to plug it back into my costume. It's a good idea to always box it. So you, out of all this stuff, you're like, what did I do with it? So here I'm going to plug it all back in here to solve for x. So now I want to solve for x. That's my goal. I want to solve for x now. I know that my substitution was u is equal to x to the 1/3. U is equal to 3. So when u is equal to 3, I'm going to have x to the 1/3. Okay, so now we're gonna have to bring in our knowledge of algebra, solve equations. How do I get this 1/3 out? What power should I raise it to make it x to the first power?
Q.
3. Right? If I raise this to the 3rd power, you multiply the exponents using the power rule of exponents. So we get x to the 1/3 times 3 would just be x to the first power. Right? Whatever you do left side, you got to do to the right side. So what's 3 cubed?
27.
27. Dun, dun, dun. Am I done?
No.
What do I need to do? Do it for you, it's -2 as well. So -2 is equal to x to the 1/3. Okay, you guys try to figure that part out. Raise against the teacher. X is equal to what? -8. And those are my 2 answers to this problem. So just quick review, starting off with something ugly. So you know what? I'm gonna put a costume on it. I want it to look like this. I want it to be in the form of a u squared minus u minus 6. Let's see if this costume really fits. Make sure. I let u equal to this. I need to make sure this costume fits. So if I square it, it better give me that. And it sure does. So I got my costume. Now, I do my quadratic, magic, mathematical skills. I have what u is. Now I have to take off the costume and go back to the real person, right? And then plug it in and find out what our original x is. Any questions? And I only have this analogy because it's Halloween. It was Christmas. I might say Santa Claus or something. Okay.